A little bit about us today. So as I said, my name's Nick. I'm from a consulting agency called Day4 Projects. And we're based here in Melbourne and we work all over the world. Our kind of specialism is in collaboration really and in working with networks and alliances and platforms and multi-sectoral and stakeholder things. Basically, we're really interested in the ways that people come together to do something bigger than what they can do themselves. We work in programs in global health, in sustainable development, in child and animal welfare, all sorts of different fun things. And at the core is about how we do things better together. And we've got a really exciting project to be talking about today. There's a list of the things we're going to go through today. I've given you the welcome already. Hopefully you feel welcome now and you are welcome. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of this particular webinar series and the session that we'll be having today. We'll be holding these every couple of months. So it'd be, keep an eye on all things collaboration if that's what you're interested in. I'll then introduce you to the speakers we have today, and we're going to have a bit of an informal panel discussion, really, a way of hearing how this collaboration works. And there will be time for questions from the audience, so do pen them and hold them as you go along, and I'll make sure we come to them as the session continues. So a little bit about this webinar series, really. I mean, we started it in a time when we needed to be meeting online, and webinars were kind of seen to be all the rage. And actually, it's been a really great opportunity to be able to bring together people from all over the world who wouldn't normally be in the same room together. So actually, the webinar format's been really great. And today you'll see we've got people from all over the world joining us today. As I said, it's a bi-monthly session, and so we're intending to hold them every kind of couple of months. And we did have grand plans to bring together a group of people in person in a couple of months, but it's not really the right time for us here in Melbourne, possibly where you are too. But it's an ever-changing climate, and we can always see each other online, and that's kind of nice too. So the purpose of this session and of this series is an opportunity to deep dive into a collaboration that's running, that's on the ground. And it could be at any stage of development. But what we find is that people who are interested in collaboration and in talking about them don't always have the opportunity to hear about, okay, so what is it that you're actually doing in your collaboration? What do you do day to day? What are you trying to change? What are you working on? How is it all going? And so that's kind of the purpose and the rationale for these discussions. We've set it up as a bit of a panel discussion, as I said before. But the idea really is to create opportunities for people to present, for different people involved in collaborations to discuss what's working, what's not, and for you as an audience to start to ask some of those questions that you might be grappling with in the world of collaboration. It's for anyone. It's free. Come along, come join us, and try and engage in it in any way you can. So a little bit about today then, today's webinar and what we're focused on today. As I said, we're in conversation with the Australian Volunteers Program and the Australian Centre for Social Innovation. And in particular, what we're looking at is a partnership that exists between those two organisations. And today we're focusing on its outreach, I suppose, as a program or initiative into Myanmar. And we've got two colleagues joining us from Myanmar here today as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, my slides, because I don't have any more to share with you. And I'm going to introduce the panelists to you. So on the call here today, we've got Carla from the Australian Volunteers Program. We have Pan, also from the Australian Volunteers Program, but Pan's based in Myanmar. We have Ma Cho, who's from the Business Coalition for Gender Equality, also based in Myanmar, and Lauren from the Australian Centre for Social Innovation. And I don't think Lauren's on Kangaroo Island, but I believe in Adelaide. Is that right, Lauren? Yeah. So we talk from different places. That's what happens when we have this thing. So I'm going to first turn to Carla and ask for Carla to give us a bit of an overview about what the AVP and TACSI collaboration or partnership is. When was it established, and what's it kind of aiming to do? And I'm going to hand it over to you, Carla.
Thanks, Nick. Yes, so the partnership with the Australian Volunteers Program and TACSI was established in around 2018. And this time it was when the Australian Volunteers Program kind of established its dedicated team and resourcing focus specifically on innovation. So the team at the time only had one person, and it was called the Innovation Challenge Fund, which has gradually evolved into the Innovation Hub. And so in that initial phase, TACSI and Anna, who was the one person in that team, Anna Traher, she's the current Innovation Hub manager, they worked together to design the structure and the innovation process that the kind of, we'll call it the hub, would follow or would take. And really the broad goal was to support innovation across the program, including in the countries where we work. So the Australian Volunteers Program operates in 26 countries across the Indo-Pacific region, and we have offices in 22 of those countries. So as, I guess, the hub evolved, so to have the roles of the partnership, I think this partnership really includes a combination of technical expertise. So TACSI bring with them that social innovation expertise, and the hub team have a lot of experience in volunteering and international development. And of course, I guess, an ever increasing skill set in innovation internally as well. And I think we just provide, I guess we combine our skill sets and work together to meet the hub's goals, which are really around identifying opportunities, developing and testing new ideas to enhance volunteering for international development and to increase the impact of the Australian Volunteers Program.
Nice, thank you. That's a really nice overview, and it's kind of a really unusual partnership because it's about trying things out. It's about trying new ideas and innovations out, and what does that actually look like? And we'll go into some more detail about that. But I wondered, because we've purposely brought along Pan and Marcho here today, and Carla, just before I go to Pan, I wanted to ask you if you could give a bit of a description of it's called Vol for Dev, or Volunteering for Development, which is one of the innovations that's come out of this hub. I wonder if you could give a bit of a description of what that is, and then I'm going to ask Pan about it as well.
Sure. So yes, Vol for Dev is a key initiative under the Innovation Hub, and it commenced in early 2020. So pre-pandemic, but was certainly accelerated in response to COVID-19. And the key question of what this piece of work is exploring is, how might the Australian Volunteers Program create or support alternative forms of volunteering or volunteerism in the countries where we work? So our approach really to trying to kind of explore this question was really to ask our teams what their ideas are. As I said before, we are a global program. We have an abundance of volunteering expertise and contextual understanding in the countries where we operate. So we designed a bit of a process to help our teams to put together their ideas about the things that they could see as opportunities in their local contexts. We received quite a few, I think 28 submissions for ideas, and then each kind of went through a bit of an approvals process through our governance mechanism that we have called the Innovation Pathways Group. And then a portfolio was, I guess, put forward of 13 projects to test, like in small scale. So I guess in this work, we're taking a bit of a try, test, learn approach, and our teams are live prototyping their ideas. And TACSI with the Innovation Hub are supporting teams around the innovation process, human-centered design or co-design methods, prototyping, documenting learning. And so I guess like this broadly, this work is very much about the Australian Volunteers Program learning about volunteering in a more localised way, which should, or hopefully, create the opportunity for us to diversify and broaden our program offering. And I think it's really further embracing that principle of locally led development and supporting more local ways of doing things and local leadership. But it's also been an opportunity for us to do things differently. You know, our teams generally take a bit of an implementation role in delivering the kind of traditional program, and this work, people I think are getting more experience in design and experimentation and innovation, and we're also very much learning about the types of conditions we need to create in order to do this type of innovation.
Nice. So there's something that's changing about the nature of the Australian Volunteers Program, something about the changing about the ways in which we do things, particularly in involving design and innovation, and really importantly, thinking about how we implement programs in country as well. That's what I'm hearing anyway. And I wonder, Pan, if you could give us a bit of a description, I guess, of what the Vol for Dev initiative is means to you, what it's doing in Myanmar, where you are.
Thank, thank you, Nick. So first of all, I would like to say thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to participate as a panel member in this webinar session. And I understand that this kind of webinar series are designed for those who are interested in or work with like collaborative initiatives. So our Vol for Deaf Myanmar project is such a collaborative initiative between Australian Volunteers Program and our partner organization, BCGE, Business Coalition for Gender Equality, of course, including the support from the Innovation Hub and the TACSI team. So Vol for Dev means for me is like new ways of doing things. It is also actually an innovation work that allows us to work differently and also work better. So our project actually brings the remote Australian volunteers and 2 Myanmar national volunteers to work together to support the partner organization, BCGE, to achieve their development objectives.
Fantastic. And you mentioned that the partner organisation that you work with, which is BCGE's, the Business Coalition for Gender Equality. And I know we have Macho on the line with us here as well. And I wonder, Macho, if you might be able to tell us a little bit about what this Vol for Dev initiative has brought to you, what it's done for the organisation that you work with as well.
Okay, thanks, Nick. BCGE, Business Coalition for Gender Equality Association in Myanmar. We are the only organization in the country who provide workplace gender equality, advocacy, and support and services to the businesses in the private sector. So we partner with Australian Volunteer Program since years back, because Australian Volunteer Program is the only organization in the country who support international expertise, where we needed the support. And for the Vol for Dev, why we are partner, with Australian Volunteer Program is that, communication. Actually, for the Vol for Dev program, which we currently partner, is for the communications area. Why? Because in the country, in the private sector, communication is the language used only in the NGO sector, not in the private sector. So private sector, they don't have a communication, though they are working on the communication area. So we think that this is an area that, while we are advocating for the advocacy of workplace gender equality, because they are doing the workplace gender equality, but they should communicate to the internet stakeholder. But we don't have a proper communication specialist in the country. Well, we see that our existing partnership with the Australian Volunteer Program would be more beneficial and very added. So we discussed with PAN, okay, how about having this Vol for Dev program and communication specialist, international and local, would be very beneficial not only for the program, but also for the business community in the country. Because this is the first program and first introduction to the private sector. Hey, this is a communication that you really doesn't understand well, but that you are really using in the country, in your daily communication. So yeah, that's why we partner with, we see this as a good opportunity because because in this Vol for Dev program we have 2 internationals and 2 locals. So which we will collaborate together and advocate, how should I say, what with our member from, and let them know that how communication should work it on. And so we have 2 international volunteers as because they are the expertise in communication, but they will bring the communication expertise to the local volunteers who will learn from the international volunteers. But on the other hand, these 2 local volunteers can also learn and then they will learn from the international volunteers and they will sustain their processes for the longer term. It's not only for that project. So where I see this is very useful, very beneficial, and also see very innovative. This is the first program that I've ever seen in our partnership. We have 12 partners, but this is the most innovative program that we ever worked.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Macho. And it's really interesting to hear that those sharing of skills and capacities, I suppose, from that kind of international organizations or partners that are sharing some of their communication skills and then working on the ground to kind of find out what are the things that people actually need and what can they learn and share back as well. And that's great to hear that it's been a successful partnership for you. We say this word innovation a lot, and this particular partnership is about is an innovation partnership. So I'm going to put Lauren from TACSI on the spot to tell us a little bit about what is an innovation partnership, you know, and what is it? How does it? What's different about this type of partnership for the work that you do?
Thanks, Nick. And I'm glad that we're aligned today, Carla. Good to hear around our partnership. So what is an innovation partnership? I'd say there's probably numerous different types of innovation partnerships, but maybe today I'll just talk about the types of partnerships related to the AVP work and the Vol for Dev project. And I think that there's two kind of innovation partnerships happening here that are similar but slightly different. And I think if we start with AVP and TACSI's partnership, I think acknowledging we both bring different expertise to this partnership. TACSI brings innovation expertise, and obviously the Australian Volunteers Program brings volunteer experience. And I guess our role in that partnership is to walk alongside and work together with AVP to help them to create the conditions and to build capability around innovation. And I think that the innovation partnership we're talking about in the Vol for Dev projects, and that's applicable to, you know, Pan and Mudshot's project, but also the multiple projects that we're working on with teams in Vol for Dev, is around, and we've heard this word a lot today, collaboration. And it's about the two partners working together to design and test a new idea or an innovation. And in this case, it's new models or modalities of volunteering. And the question of how innovation partnerships different probably differs for the type of the different innovation partnerships. But I think in the Vol for Dev context, it is very much focused around collaboration and true collaboration. And in using the word true collaboration, I think it's about creating the environment and the conditions for that collaboration. And that means ensuring that there's an equitable space that the partners are working within, that they're managing power dynamics within that relationship, and they're valuing each other's expertise that they're bringing to the partnership.
I mean, there's the conditions of collaboration. We kind of gloss over them a lot, don't we, when we're talking about how do we collaborate, but they have to be the most important parts of it. I'm interested then, Pan, following on from what Lauren said there, if you could talk a little bit about how some of those, what some of those factors have been for you on the ground, and how you've enabled those factors or conditions of good collaboration to grow.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. So generally, the innovation work allows us to discover and design and experiment new things. So we really love prototyping. And actually, we expected lots of Melbourne directives initially in the beginning of the project, but in reality, we got opportunities to take our own initiatives. So, you know, diving in, testing the ideas and identifying the areas for improvement, taking the stewardship like that. So this is really, I mean, very great. And also we support each other. We encountered a couple of challenges throughout the process, but with the relationship and the trust we built, the due respect we have, and the support we provide to each other, we overcome the challenges together. And also the most important thing is like the teamwork. So I would like to here highlight the value of how we are working together as a team. We have like different, you know, like the different objectives. Like, for example, for Australian Volunteers Program, yeah, we would like to seek the alternative model of volunteering that is really useful in Myanmar context, especially in this very challenging and fragile situation in Myanmar. So, and for Medjob for BCG, of course, they would like to see like the communication strategies useful for all the stakeholders involved and also for their team. So, but we share the common vision and mission. So that's the way how we work and how we learn from each other as well.
That's great. Thanks, Pam. Yeah, so it's nice to hear how you start to build those cultures of trust and responsiveness to one another. That's really nice. I'm interested then, as the partner organization, Macho, how some of those benefits kind of taken place for you? What do they look like in your place of work?
Benefits, as everybody said, that it's this program itself is an innovation. We also feel that, because when we were with, the for the program with Australian volunteer program, we see that it's a bit, in the first step, it's a bit strange because, like, it's like think out of the box, from the other program. Because usually with our partners, we sign MOU, we discuss, we go on, and usually for the supporting partner organization, usually more localized, and more directive way how you do that because we support you do that, you do that. But it's a bit strange, they invite our, from the very program design, they invite our ideas and listen our, it's a bit strange. Is it innovative? Because we don't know that it's an innovative program, but we see that it's innovative enough, and then the workshop, bi-weekly catch up, it's very innovative. So we feel that innovation as a partner organization, but we didn't see that it's an innovative program, right? So and they let us lead, and they listen and they support. So we feel that it's a big innovation, from the very beginning and throughout the journey. And then the benefits that we see, the from as we said that the innovative idea, the project idea. So we also apply with that innovative idea to our other project already, So that's we learn the innovative idea, how, a new ways of managing a project, especially partnership. And another benefits that we got from this, like, mutual understanding and relationship, mutual understanding, trust, we try to understand all the stakeholders involved in this program and exchange of knowledge, For example, I said we have 2 internationals and 2 local volunteers. So we also try to learn from them. And they also said that they also try to learn from us. For example, like an international, a very expertise Australian communication specialist. But she would like to deliver her expertise, but she also would like to learn that how she can provide that expertise, whether it's suitable in the Myanmar context or not. So we usually say that thank you so much. We're happy to learn. And they also said that it's very glad for them to learn from us because they have like the expertise, but they also need to design and adjust it how they should deliver that messages in the country of the context. It's very interesting and it's very unique. So like exchange of knowledges, learning, and another thing is like the culture. We have diverse background, diverse culture, diverse society, and diverse generation. In our volunteer program, we have baby boomer, to generation Z, How we can motivate the baby boomer to generation to extreme side, and I am the X and Y and Z, right? So
Macho,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're having a little bit of trouble with your sound. It's just the microphone, I think. It's okay. We can have a look at it in a minute. But I did hear lots of the things that you said then. Something about the ways in which you're able to try new things within the organization and getting that permission to just experiment and be innovative and trying. And then it was really nice to hear how you were discussing how some of those programs could be kind of, I suppose, ground up. You were able to look what's useful in this context, in your Myanmar context, with all of the diverse cultures and diverse people that you're working with. So it's great to hear how that's going. Do you want to see if your sound has improved a little bit? Because we'd love to hear what you had to say.
Okay, so I tried to put my mic again. So can you hear me very clearly for now?
A little bit, yeah. I think when you're sitting quite close to your monitor, it works quite well. Yeah.
Okay, great. I tried to close with my monitor. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Carla, it's interesting because we've been talking about this, the kinds of things that can make that I suppose working in, what am I trying to say, in established processes, in places that maybe don't have a propensity for innovation, and that's one of the things that Marcho is talking about there. How do you change the ways in which we do things? And I'm wondering if you could describe a little bit about what's different about having, I suppose, an innovation partnership within the Australian Volunteers Program. What's that like within an organisation like the Volunteers Program?
I think so. Yeah, the difference between these AVP partnerships and maybe our traditional approach. I mean, I guess I want to say that partnership is really at the centre of everything that the Australian Volunteers Program does. One of our guiding principles is that of building strong relationships and partnerships, and we partner with hundreds of organisations across the region, with one of the key outcomes of the program being that those partner organisations are supported to progress their development objectives. And the core modality of how we do this is really to deploy Australian volunteers either in country or remotely to support those partner organisations through volunteering, always working towards the objectives set out by the partner organisation. But I think the difference that this work has in our approach to partnerships is that we're not looking at these partnerships with an implementation mindset. We're not viewing it as a partnership that is centered around volunteer management necessarily, but instead it's a partnership with multiple stakeholders are working together to co-design a new opportunity. And so our partners, BCG as an example, and of course there's a portfolio of work here, they're not just receiving volunteers from us, but they're playing a really important role in the design of new opportunities for volunteering that suit their needs. And so I think these partnerships are really creating environments where our partners are being able to, I guess, reciprocate in the partnership in a way that they otherwise haven't. And it's what we're learning, I think, is how to approach partnerships that allow for increased collaboration, which I think is what Lauren was kind of saying in terms of the innovation partnership. And I think there's obviously really a lot of value in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, there's something about the conditions by which you need to establish and the foundations for being able to transform and change the ways in which we do things that I think, as you say, are really connected to those foundations of collaboration and of partnership, good partnership as well. As I should say, we had the privilege of working on this project and conducting a bit of an evaluation or review of how the partnership has been going. And we certainly found out lots of different things about the partnership. But I'm interested, Lauren, from your point of view, because we've talked about all the positive things that happen from this and how fantastic it's been for the different organisations involved. I wonder if you could describe what some of the maybe more challenging aspects of trying to do a partnership like this have been.
Sure, thanks, Nick. Maybe I'll talk about the positive that leads to the to the negative. So I guess the positive is that we've built this really strong partnership based on trust and respect for our expertise, different expertise. And we're really working as a team, even though we come from two different organisations. And I guess in doing that and working as a team, sometimes we have blurred the line between who's working for TACSI and who's working for AVP. And the majority of times that's really a positive because that enables us to work deeply together within the projects that we're working on. But there is a flip side to that that makes that a little bit challenging sometimes, and that's when the blurring of the lines of the two different organisations in this partnership, there's also a blurring of lines between responsibilities and roles within that partnership. And it's been quite fluid in the past and responsive to the different needs of both organisations, but it's definitely something we've had to manage to ensure that we're clear on what those roles and responsibilities are.
Yeah, so something about, I mean, it's probably the sign of a really great partnership, as you say, Lauren, where you've got this kind of blurring of roles and who knows who, but then, as you say, when you're trying to implement this long term, it's like, where does the buck stop? Who's taking responsibility for this? And I wonder if there's like repercussions for that at a country level, I suppose. Pan, I'm wondering if you could talk about it from your perspective, like what have some of those challenges been for you on the ground?
Yeah, the main challenges are about the ongoing developments in country and also the pandemic COVID-19 situation. So we had to pause for a few months during the project designing phase because of COVID. COVID, that wave hit the in-country team and also the BCG team a lot. So we had to pause the projects for like 3 or 4 months. And another thing is, I think the success of this project is also dependent on the contextual factors. Because, you know, this is like, this involves multiple stakeholders, BCGE, remote Australian volunteers, national volunteers, TACSI, Innovation Hub. So multiple stakeholders. And between Australia and Myanmar, we are working in different time zones. So, you know, the Australian volunteers, although they are working remotely, they need to know Myanmar's context. And also for Myanmar volunteers, they also need to know the Australian context. So, but we are very lucky because we have one Australian volunteer who knows the Myanmar context really well. So she can facilitate all the like the team coordination, in the meetings, workshops. So that's very smooth. So we can have like very frequent and regular coordination meeting between Australian Volunteers Program team and also the Innovation Hub, TACSI, and BCGE. And between BCGE and the volunteers, they usually have like meetings, coordination meetings, workshops every week. So that's the way how we manage the relationships and also like the stakeholders management. So BCG is actually a long-term strategic partner, but from this innovation work, this for-product project, really fruitful partnerships and relationships have emerged. This is the very first time we have Myanmar national volunteers. This is the very first time we work together with them. So the project itself is very innovative, but also it is very interesting.
Yeah.
So we have like challenges like the COVID-19 and the country situation, like the political instability, these things. But I'm really proud of this project achieved to this level, although there are a lot of challenges.
Thank you, Pam. Those are great reflections. I think it's really easy sometimes, isn't it, to think about collaboration as being something that we already know how to do, and forgetting all of those really specific challenges that are context specific, as you're talking about there. Even simple things like time zones and being able to understand those contexts, that can be really complicated. Macho, I wonder whether you could talk a little bit about, you started talking about it before, and we'll check your sound, but I wanted to ask you a bit about the cultural challenges and differences that you might have encountered along the way in the program, because I know people on the call will be really interested in that context that you're working in as well.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, great. So yeah, so I don't want to set as the challenges, but yeah, but there are, for the collaboration, if we consider for the collaboration between countries, two different countries, the most important thing is understanding the local context and local content. Yeah. So as Juan said, that we are quite lucky that we have an Australian volunteer who just coordinate among the culture between Australian and Myanmar. It's a huge cultural difference between Australia and Myanmar, because sometimes we think that in Myanmar we pay respect to the elder people. So like in the program, we have the elder generation, the baby boomer. So which we think we are hesitate to tell that, because it's not about we are incompetent, but it's about we would like to pay more respect. But on the other hand, from the Australian side, why don't they come and tell them? It's quite easy. So these kind of things, just like a coordinator who understands the local context, so she just communicated its work well. So the most important thing in collaboration is like understanding the local and cultural context plays a very important role. And then trust and understanding is second place, right? So yeah. So you have the challenges like the cultural and local context, like, the age, the generation gap. Sometimes, the baby boomer generation X and Y. So we have different generation, different culture, different perspective. But the good thing is that we are the association working on DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. So the blood of DEI is embedded within our team, and so do with their volunteers. So it's great that, there might be another scenario if the program was at another organization, but BCG is organization working on DEI. So the DEI blood is here. So we understand how we should, but we frankly speaking, and then, okay, this is the worry from us, is it work for the Australian context or not? But if the programs say something, no, this doesn't work for Myanmar context. So we, as previous said, that the trust, understanding, and open discussion, okay, that doesn't work, that work, and the program openly and frankly said to us that we would like to do it that way. Will that be work? Will that not be work? So it's a mutual understanding, trust, and understanding of the cultural context, and try to engage and work, like a prior discussion. Okay, we would like to, it's not like, hey, we would like to see that. Let's work today. It's not like that. We plan to work like that. Will that be okay for your context? What is the suggestion? And blah, blah, blah. So that way, the prior discussion, prior meeting, prior workshop help us a lot. And like, from the project start, we have a weekly catch up and a bi-weekly catch up. That also make us more familiarized, among the project team. And then as we work later, like in some kind of months, so our meeting will reduce a bit, from the project studying period, we have a regular catch-up, regular meeting, which also make us understand, each other in different cultures, and then with a coordinator and with understanding each other, that also work for us, So there are kind of some, not challenges, like there are some kind of things that we need to understand and adjust among ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So where understanding and trust plays a big role.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I can hear lots of really great ideas there and some things to remind us all of, I suppose, when you're setting up a partnership that kind of oscillates lots of different places. It's, that upfront work around understanding one another, understanding where we're coming from, our context, our cultures, our practices is a really important foundational stuff. And as you say, trust and that openness can kind of flow from there as well. Thank you, Macho. That's really, really interesting.
Another point, Nick, the flexibility. For
Mhm.
instance, that, this purpose that is like the program itself, they also may have a deadline, the planning timeline. But for us, it's like a bit flexibility and understanding on the partner organization, which I've never seen in others. Because other partner, no, we would like to see this, do this, please do this, do this. And so sometimes we have to do this because we know that it's unpractical. But we have to do this because the program pushed us. But this one for the program, whenever we discuss, oh, that doesn't work, and they list, okay, really, that doesn't work, but we would like to see and why. So why doesn't it work and how you would like to. So they discuss and they listen, and we agree and we have a common ground and we move forward. That, I think that's why, we see the program is a success, though it is a new project.
That's a really fantastic observation. I think like there's something you said flexibility, but there's something about that reciprocity of understanding where one another are coming from and being really open to that and listening to one another. So that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you much. I've got one more question for Lauren, but I'm going to just open up to the audience as well. If you've got questions, do drop them in the Q&A, and we'll come to them in a moment. But my question, I mean, I'm particularly, Lauren knows this, but I'm particularly interested in how we begin to assess or evaluate or measure these partnerships. And I have a particular interest in how we measure, evaluate, assess innovation. And I wonder, Lauren, if you could talk a bit about what are some of those signals that kind of show that success is happening within an innovation partnership?
Thanks, Nick. Now I'll talk specifically about ADP and our partnership with them and the signals for success. I guess the things that we're seeing that are signs of success within this partnership are definitely an emerging culture for innovation within the program and its network. And I guess an increased value around innovation, a growing awareness around innovation throughout the program and its network, and the level of engagement of staff and partners and volunteers within innovation activities across the program. And I think more specifically, we've also been able to see how the program has become more adaptable and responsive to the changing conditions and environment for volunteering. And I guess the big one here is COVID and how the program responded quickly to developing and innovating a new model of volunteering or modality of volunteering called remote volunteering. And I think part of that was having this innovation process and foundation in place prior to that. I think some other ways that we can see success in the partnership is how originally the Innovation Hub sat outside the program, and the activities that the Innovation Hub did were outside the program. And I think over time we've been able to see how innovation has become more embedded within the program. And I guess recently we've seen that through the refreshed program logic and how for the first time innovation is threaded throughout that program logic. And we're also seeing teams throughout the program having innovation activities as part of their annual planning. And I guess we've also measured the level of engagement across the project, across the program over time, and the reach of innovation across the network over time as well.
Yeah, and it speaks to some of the, I suppose, the aims and objectives, maybe unknown at the beginning because it was trying something new. But as you start to embed a culture of innovation within an organisation, perhaps that's something that it kind of begins to show signals in different ways, and what it looks like can look different for different people, kind of. Pan, I wonder if you could speak a little bit about, because in your context, how do you actually make time for this type of work? How do you, because we all know innovation takes time. It's not just like a new idea, is it? So how do you make time for it? How do you dedicate that space and opportunity to developing innovation within your work?
Yeah, actually it is very interesting to balance the time for our routine work and also this innovation work, to balance the work and also our work-life balance as well. So for me and my other colleague, senior, so we both are interested in this, innovation work, because we submitted the proposal about this project. Actually, at the time, we have a couple of challenges, like in-country challenges because of the military coup and the instability, and we cannot have any in-country assignments until now. So we would like to support our partner organization in this challenging time. So we discussed together as a team, and then we proposed the idea about the co-volunteering. Australian volunteers and Myanmar volunteers work together to support the partner organization. So we also have the routine remote volunteer assignments and other program activities, but for us, this is like a kind of, how can I say, very new and innovative thing we are very passionate about, so we both are committed. So we have we schedule time at least 2 days per week. And then we sit together and discuss on the designing and also prototyping things, implementation, and also monitoring, evaluation, these things. So generally, we have all the for example, the monitoring evaluation tools of Australian Volunteers Program, but how we can develop the new monitoring evaluation learning framework for this fall for dev, and also how we can evaluate the findings, the outcomes of this project through maybe the case study or storytelling, or the most significant change, or maybe we conduct the focus group discussions or interviews with different stakeholders or these things. So there are a lot of things we have to plan and set up, but because of our commitment and because this is our passion, so yeah, we give time 2 days per week at least. Yeah, on this.
That's really interesting. I'm always interested how an organization or how people kind of prioritize these different kinds of ways of working, I suppose, within organization. And it sounds like, Pam, it's a bit of a not all at once. You kind of, you do some of it off the side of the desk, and then you start to transform the ways in which you're doing things, which is great. Really interesting to hear. Carla, I'm going to come to you because one of the things that I found most interesting about this project, and I hope this has come through for everyone on the call today, is part of the principle of this, I suppose, is to set up a hub, a place for doing innovation within the Australian Volunteers Program. And I wonder if you had any advice for others who are interested in what an innovation hub looks like and how you actually set one up within an organisation. Is there anything you've learned along the way?
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, I think the shape of our hub has changed quite a lot over the course of the past 5 years, and even I guess the specific kind of objectives of the hub have also shifted. I mean, even when I go back to 2018, and it was before my time in the hub, but it was called the Innovation Challenge Fund, and I think there was a bit of those first tasks was really like, what do we do and how do we do it? And even that name suggests maybe we're going to fund some people's ideas, within the program. But then it's, kind of evolved into a bit more than that, where we're not just funding different people's ideas, but we've actually kind of developed this whole kind of process of generating ideas or different opportunities to generate ideas, and then kind of take them through a process. So I mean, look, I don't know if I've got any like clear cut ways to how to develop an innovation hub. And I don't know, maybe Lauren's probably been involved in some of the process a bit further than I have. But I guess now, if I talk about what like the innovation of what the hub now kind of looks like, it is about, and I mentioned earlier, looking at ideas. Now, ideas come from multiple things. We sometimes do idea generation kind of activities within our global teams, asking volunteers, partners to participate in different kind of sprints that might generate ideas. Sometimes they come from mal activities. And then we kind of, I guess, think through how we might do some discovery design around those different ideas. But we also have a real kind of innovation capability building, I guess, remit that's become more like kind of central to what the hub's about as well. So how do we really build that innovation capability? So it's not just the innovation hub kind of holding, the skills around innovation, and not, there's not this mindset that innovation only comes from the innovation hub, but actually, everyone's doing innovation across the program, and how we might support that and kind of embrace that and push that forward. So, I mean, I don't think I've given any like clear directions on how to do it, but just that it's been a bit of an evolving process for us.
Yeah, and some of the things that are working for you as well. I can hear some of the things that are working over time as your needs and aspirations change. I'm looking at the chat here, and Aisling's put in a question here. It's kind of following on from what you just were saying then, Carla, about how do you actually kind of connect or disconnect the space that's about innovation from the work, the BAU work that you're doing, that you're involved in as well. I wonder if you could expand a bit on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think sometimes there is a bit of, I think over the time, some of our experience has been a little bit of this view that we are separate to the BAU. And I think one of the real goals of us is to, and I think as Lauren mentioned before, we have, I guess, become, just through the different ways that we've been working a bit more embedded into, because we kind of want to be seen as business as usual as well, and so there's, sometimes some challenges around kind of not being seen as the kind of fancy little innovation kind of luxurious thing that we might have, but also like, I guess, bringing everyone on that journey to recognize that this is actually core business, that what we're doing is working towards the outcomes of the program. And so, you know, I guess when we talk about at the program BAU, business as usual, we're talking about delivering volunteers to partner organisations. And I think, you know, particularly if you want to look at the Vol for Dev piece of work, it did kind of get accelerated when we didn't have volunteers in country. So there was a lot of time for teams to really kind of focus on this stuff. But as, you know, the world is opening up more, we are starting to have volunteers in country more. So there is that, we have to be aware that people's time is different now. But I think the value of this work actually is kind of recognizing that resource requirements change. And to continue doing this work, our teams, if they can do this work, you know, there might have to be some shifts in terms of how we kind of slice up what people's jobs are if they're going to be centrally involved in some innovation activities as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's what we're hearing as a through line from all of this. You know, as you start to develop innovation partnerships, you come in with one idea, and then I suppose the goalposts change. Not to use a sporting metaphor because that's very not me. But I suppose you're just changing the kind of things that you might like to achieve together, and I guess that speaks to the kind of coherent nature of a collaboration that knows how to kind of shift the goals as you move through together. That's really nice to hear. I like that question. I'm reflecting on it. Like, how do you make this stuff? How do you keep the dedicated space while also trying to embed innovation within the business as usual processes and practices of an organisation? And I think some of the work that you've done as a group is testament to that. You can move from one to the other.
And I mean, I think also some examples are, so before, you know, it used to be like, now teams, we have global teams, and they each kind of have their own annual planning process to think about what they're going to do and what kind of objectives they're going to meet and the activities in which they'll carry out. And I think, you know, an example is that they actually have specific innovation kind of activities written into their own team's annual plans, not just like the innovation team having innovation activities and asking teams to participate in our activities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So sometimes it's a really kind of mechanical or operational process, isn't it, about the distinguishing between, is this the work of the hub or is this the work of everyone within the organisation? So a testament to it moving on.
And I think what's also important is that to recognise that, yeah, like I kind of mentioned before, like innovation does happen beyond what the innovation hub does.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, for us, it's also kind of like balancing, like, we don't have to be the gatekeepers of innovation. If people have ideas and they don't have to go through us to do this. We can maybe provide support. And I think that's kind of where we're at as well now. And we're kind of looking to the future about how we might evolve again, so that we can support teams in maybe some different ideas that they might have, but also not to make it like a requirement, you know, that you have to come through the innovation hub in order to do innovation.
Mm. Thank you, Carla. I'm just conscious of time and our audience with us here today. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to our panelists. It's just so nice to hear about a kind of macro partnerships that's working with two big organizations, and then thinking about how it really works on the ground. I really wanted to thank you for your time, Marcho and Pan, for joining us from Myanmar to give us sort of those on the ground experiences and recollections and reflections of what's happened for you. And of course, to Lauren and Carla, thank you so much for your time and energy as well. Thanks everyone for joining us. We will send around a bit of a write-up and a wrap-up of what we've discussed today. And if you want to learn more about this partnership, I really encourage you to get in contact with some of our panelists or with us as well. And we'd love to hear more about your partnerships, and do stay connected to the series. We'll send you more information and try and get you involved in different things as we go forward. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for today.